Yeah, Operation Bootstrap. Excuse me, I put the title in English, but if you look under March 24th of the syllabus, it's in English. And then, let's see, on the 24th. Okay, so there, in English and in Spanish.
Yeah. Venezuela.
I want to watch it because even though this class focuses really on the diaspora and the migration, it's important to know a little bit about what's going on the islands. It's really, especially to understand this period of the middle century and the great migration of Puerto Ricans to New York, which is really, we talked about last week.
Like, why would they read?
Right, I mean, you need to sort of understand, because otherwise, it just seems, from the readings that we've done, it just seems like they're all coming here looking for work, right? And we don't understand the significance of that if you don't understand what's going on the island, especially with this industrialization campaign or Operation Bootstrap. So, and these, remember, you can use these documentaries, you can borrow them from the library to show to your classes. These are the only things that circulate from the library downstairs. So today, why don't we go over any comments or questions that you have about the documentary. We can sort of tie that back into the ox cart, although I think we did discuss most of the play already, the ox cart by René Marquez. But if you want to tie in anything that you saw, maybe, I think that watching this video may help make more sense of the play. And then we'll move on to Puerto Rican women and migration. And then take maybe just the last few minutes, if you have any questions about what was due today for your projects, or we can talk a little bit about your units. So let's start. Any comments or questions about this, about the documentary? Or did it make you think of anything in relation to the play that we read for last week?
Not so much, because the play refers to such a rural family that, and we saw much more the urban centers and industrialization. So had it been a family of workers that maybe lost their jobs or whatever, I could more easily. But one thing that's become clear, that if the entire island is producing sugarcane like it had, and obviously if you just have a little plot of land, how will that sustain and become a viable thing? So that's what the young man, Luis, right, is telling the grandfather, forget it, La Tierra is not good anymore, it's the machines. But you don't necessarily understand why he had to leave, because on the other hand, there seems to be such an industrial boom going on in Puerto Rico. But it's all, there's a boom, but then every third person needed public assistance. So I think I would like to know more to really understand what's going on.
Okay, and maybe we can fill in that a little bit today. Any other comments? Or anything you want to add to what Annie said, or maybe some of you feel like you may have some answers to her questions? I don't know.
Wasn't the play in the 1950s?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's this would be more like the 80s where the documentary was shot.
No, Operation Bootstrap was, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it did go all
It
the way
was shot.
through to the
Right,
80s,
that's what I
right?
was
It did go through to the 80s, this documentary. But the idea of Operation Bootstrap and the industrialization of Puerto Rico was immediately following World War II, so it's from 1945. Right? This was not something that happened later. I think what they're showing is that even though this plan for industrializing Puerto Rico and developing jobs on the island started in 1945, it's showing how unsuccessful it was, because in 1980, you still have this very high rate of unemployment. And you have these factories that came to Puerto Rico. They showed the small town of Guayama, so it wasn't just in the urban centers. A lot of it was in these smaller towns where they set up these factories, not just the sugar cane, right? They brought all other kinds of industry to the island, and they were going to create jobs, but they were creating factory jobs. Right? So that's the first thing I think we need to keep in mind. They weren't creating high-level jobs, any kind of skilled jobs. They're factory jobs. And even still, they had the gentleman in the film, in the documentary, said that in the town of Guayama, they had this promise of that they were going to create 100,000 jobs, was it? And they created 1,800, at 1,800, right? What is disparity in the projection and in the reality.
Yeah.
So I think that explains really why they left, right? Because there were two things going on. In 1945, you had the industrialization of Puerto Rico to create jobs to help with the unemployment on the island, but also as an immediate measure was mass migration, because they didn't know what to do. I mean, the unemployment rate was so high. They said, well, some of these programs, Operation Bootstrap, may take a few years to really get these jobs going for people. So let's really push people to migrate and find jobs in New York, because, of course, after 1945, there was a lot of prosperity in the U.S., right, immediately following World War II. So they needed factory workers here. So I said, well, let's bring them over here. That'll solve the immediate problem temporarily. And then Operation Bootstrap will create enough jobs so that this mass migration won't have to continue. Part of that is, you know, I didn't bring the book today, and I wanted to just to read a short quote for you, but the book that I brought a couple of weeks ago on the Puerto Rican diaspora, I think it's Historical Perspectives, but it's Carmen Whalen's book. She writes about this, and several other historians have written about it as well, where in Puerto Rico this problem of migration or unemployment is often addressed as a problem of overpopulation. So rather than looking at the real problems that are going on the island, the fact that the unemployment rate is very high and that these factories come in and don't create enough jobs, and they're factory level jobs, right? There's not really room for growth. They don't look at that as the problem, or the economic dependence of Puerto Rico on the United States. They don't look at that as the problem, but rather they see, well, we have a problem of overpopulation, so to solve that problem, let's move people to the U.S. And then they had the sterilization campaign, which they mentioned. It's another great film. We're not going to watch it here, but another documentary that you may want to borrow. Have you seen it?